Okay, so Canada,
Yeah.
the mountains, the healthcare,
Right.
maybe even a few friendly moose.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to get swept up in all the hype, right?
It really is. I think it definitely has that uh, sort of that reputation as a kind of utopian ideal, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, but
For a lot of people.
what if I told you that a Canadian, someone who actually lived that Canadian dream,
Right.
decided to pack it all up and move back?
Interesting.
This deep dive is all about getting past that picture perfect image,
Yeah.
and we're going to do it with this article called "Do Not Immigrate to Canada."
Oh. Oh.
So, you ready to take the plunge?
Let's dive in. Yeah. I think hearing from someone who's actually been there and had that experience, it can be really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. So this author, James,
Okay.
he doesn't hold back.
Oh.
He right out of the gate, he calls out Prime Minister Trudeau
Mm.
as being all talk and no action.
Oh.
So, I mean, what do you make of that? Does that cast doubt on Canada's image, especially for someone looking to make like a fresh start?
Well, it's definitely something to, think about.
Yeah.
Canada has this reputation of being progressive, being welcoming.
Right.
So for someone coming in with expectations based on that image,
Yeah.
and then encountering that kind of political disillusionment,
Right.
it could be a bit of a letdown.
For sure. He goes on to say that the influx of 1 million immigrants a year
Right.
is putting a serious strain on things. I
Mm.
mean, try to imagine this: adding an entire city
Yeah.
the size of San Francisco
Wow.
every year.
Yeah, that is a huge influx of people.
It is.
And it makes sense that would have some consequences, right?
Yeah.
Think about the pressure on housing, on
Right.
healthcare,
Yeah.
even on social dynamics. I mean,
Uh-huh.
rapid growth like that without proper planning and infrastructure to support it, it can lead to a lot of unexpected issues, right?
It's true, and James paints a pretty stark picture of a system under stress.
Yeah.
He talks about these soaring housing costs,
Right.
a strained healthcare system,
Yeah.
even a rise in anti-immigrant sentiment, which
Oh, wow.
it's kind of concerning to hear that.
It is. It's concerning because those are all things that could really have a significant impact on someone's experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's important to be aware of those things before making such a big decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like immigrating to another country.
Okay, so let's say you've landed.
Okay.
You're ready to hit the ground running in the job market.
Yeah.
But James throws out this Canadian experience requirement
Right.
that employers seem to just demand.
Yeah.
How can someone new even have that? It seems like such a catch-22.
It's a very common barrier for skilled immigrants, actually, I think, worldwide.
Right.
And while it makes sense on the surface, right, companies want to hire people who understand the local market.
Sure.
It can create some unfair hurdles for those who have, valuable international experience.
Yeah.
And, you might find yourself, according to James, competing with thousands of applicants.
Thousands.
For a single position.
Wow. That's intense.
It is. Yeah. It can be a very competitive job market.
It makes you wonder how anyone can even break into that.
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that you should be asking yourself before you even start the process, right?
Or-
Like, think about it this way. What unique skills or experiences do you bring to the table?
Right.
How can you really highlight what makes you stand out from that massive crowd?
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
so while you're looking for a job,
Right.
you're going to need a place to live. And James points out that newcomers can't actually buy a home until they get permanent residency.
Right.
So what does that even mean?
Well, so permanent residency essentially gives you the right to live and work in Canada indefinitely.
Okay.
But without it, you're
Yeah.
pretty much limited to renting,
Right.
which can be a challenge in itself
Sure.
in a tight rental market, right?
Yeah.
And James even mentions landlords, potentially taking advantage of newcomers who
Right.
might be unfamiliar with, local regulations and things like that.
That's it. That's a good point. So
Yeah.
so even finding a place to live
Yeah.
can be a bit of a minefield.
It can be. So it's always wise to do your homework.
Yeah.
Research tenant rights.
Okay.
Understand those lease agreements and don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions.
Right.
Being informed, right? It's your best defense.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've managed to find a job.
Okay.
You found a place to live. Now comes the cost of living crunch.
Yeah.
And James doesn't really sugarcoat it.
Mm.
Canada.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
It can be.
Especially when you think about, wages,
Right.
taxes, rent, everyday expenses.
Yeah, all of that adds up.
It does.
And I think this is where realistic budgeting is really crucial.
Sure.
Because the cost of basic necessities like groceries, transportation, utilities,
Right.
that can vary a lot between different cities in Canada.
Fact.
So doing your research,
Yeah.
Looking at the average costs for those things in your target city, it's really essential.
And James even calls out, he names a major grocery chain, Loblaws,
Okay.
for potentially taking advantage of the situation with, with inflated prices and things like that.
Interesting.
So are there ways to kind of anticipate these sorts of things before you make the move?
Absolutely. I think, it's important to look beyond, just the marketing.
Right.
And really dig a little deeper.
Right.
Compare prices.
Yeah.
Consider, consider alternative options.
Sure.
And always factor in that cost of living when
Yeah.
you're evaluating job offers
Yeah.
or potential salaries.
Right. Okay.
That's really crucial.
All right. Now let's talk about healthcare.
Okay.
We all know Canada has this universal healthcare system,
Right.
but James says it's not quite the the European style system that people imagine.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions provincial healthcare.
Right.
What does that even mean?
So it's actually a little bit more complicated than just a single unified system.
Okay.
Each province in Canada manages its own healthcare system, which can lead to some variations in coverage and the services that are offered.
Right.
For example, dental and vision care.
Yeah.
They're often not fully covered. And then there's the issue of wait times.
Yeah.
Which James mentions, and it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, he says you could be waiting months,
Potentially,
even years to see specialists.
It can happen.
It's just such a stark contrast to the image of
right.
of readily accessible healthcare.
It is, and I think it really highlights the importance of considering how this system might impact you personally, right? If you have ongoing health conditions or you think you might need specialized care, it's something that you really need to factor into your decision.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about safety.
Okay.
Canada has this reputation for being, super safe.
Safe and friendly.
James argues that's changing. He says there's been an increase in crime.
Okay.
Particularly things like vehicle theft,
right,
and even violent crimes.
Yeah.
And he attributes this to things like reduced social services,
okay,
lenient laws, and the whole debate surrounding police funding.
Interesting. So it's a complex issue, right?
Yeah.
Crime rates are influenced by so many different factors.
Sure.
And while Canada's crime rates, are generally lower than in some other developed nations, any upward trend, I think, warrants attention.
Yeah.
And really, how much weight you give to that factor depends on you, on your individual priorities and your comfort levels.
Absolutely. So we've painted a pretty realistic picture here.
Yeah.
And it's not all, sunshine and maple syrup.
No.
So what should someone considering this move, what should they take away from James's experience?
Well, I think the key takeaway here is that Canada has a lot to offer, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not a utopia. There are real challenges.
Yeah.
And your experience is going to be shaped by your choices, your preparedness.
Right.
And honestly, a little bit of luck as well.
Absolutely.
But this deep dive, it's really about equipping you with the knowledge to make an informed decision.
Right.
Not to discourage you.
Exactly. And speaking of informed decisions, we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There are other perspectives we want to consider.
For sure.
There's data to analyze.
Right.
And even the Canadian government's role to explore.
Absolutely.
So stay with us as we continue to unpack this this complex issue.
Yeah, there's a lot more to uncover.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back. So we just heard one man's story.
Right.
But to get a clearer picture, I think we need to zoom out a bit.
Yeah, you're right. A single story can only tell us so much. So So what else do we have? What else can help us understand this better?
Well, we have some data from Statistics Canada
Okay.
that gives us a broader view of immigration trends and some economic indicators.
Yeah, numbers are always good for grounding us in reality.
They are.
So what stands out to you in the data?
Well, I think the sheer volume is pretty striking.
Okay.
Over 437,000 new permanent residents were admitted just last year.
Wow.
And that number's projected to keep rising.
Wow.
So it really underscores that point about rapid growth that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's a lot of new people coming in every year. So does the data tell us anything about how those newcomers are doing?
It does, and it supports what James was saying about the job market being tough.
Right.
The unemployment rate for recent immigrants is consistently higher than for Canadian-born workers.
So the Canadian experience barrier, it's not just anecdotal; it's backed up by the numbers.
It's real, and knowing that beforehand can really help you prepare, right? Imagine you're in the middle of your job search, and you're up against others who already have that foothold, in the Canadian system.
Yeah.
So, what are some ways that you can make your application stand out?
I mean, networking seems like it would be crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, building those connections can open so many doors.
It can.
And perhaps focusing on skills that are just universally in demand.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But here's what I find really interesting.
Okay.
Despite all of these challenges,
yeah,
the majority of immigrants report feeling satisfied with their lives in Canada.
Really?
Yeah, they value the welcoming atmosphere, the diversity, and the quality of life.
So maybe it's not all doom and gloom after all.
Right, exactly.
Maybe there's more to the story than just the initial struggle.
There is. It's like any big move, right?
Yep.
It takes time to adjust, to find your footing.
Absolutely.
And to build a life.
So it's about having realistic expectations.
Exactly.
Going in.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing the data doesn't paint a perfectly rosy picture either, right?
Right. There are definitely some nuances.
Good.
The data shows that certain groups, like refugees or those from certain regions, face higher rates of poverty and unemployment.
So it really highlights how those individual circumstances can really influence the whole experience.
Yeah.
I mean, factors like language proficiency,
right,
education, support network.
Sure.
They all play a role.
They do. They all play a significant role.
And that's where I guess that's where we can turn to something a little more personal.
Yeah.
Those online forums,
right,
social media, where immigrants are sharing their firsthand accounts.
Exactly. It's like getting a glimpse into the day-to-day realities beyond just the statistics.
It sounds. That sounds fascinating. So what are people saying about their lives in Canada? Are there any common threads in their experiences?
Well, a lot of people talk about that emotional roller coaster of immigration.
Okay.
The excitement of new beginnings for sure.
Right.
But also the anxiety, the loneliness, the culture shock that can come with it, Yeah. Think about it. You're leaving everything familiar behind,
right,
and starting over in a completely new place.
Well,
it's bound to have an impact.
It sounds like having a strong support system. Would be invaluable.
It is.
Are people talking about that in these forums?
They are. Connecting with others who understand what you're going through.
Okay.
Whether it's family or friends or even those online communities.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference. And having access to mental health resources. I think that can be really crucial during those times of transition.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's get practical for a moment.
All right.
What are people saying about the things we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Housing, healthcare, cost of living.
Yeah.
Is it playing out the way we might expect?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Which probably won't surprise you.
Yeah.
Some people have found affordable housing, in smaller towns or cities, while others are really struggling with bidding wars and those high rents in the bigger metro areas.
So it really underscores the importance of location choice and research.
Absolutely.
It's not just about, moving to Canada. It's about choosing the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
Within Canada.
Within Canada, for sure.
So what about healthcare? Any surprises there?
Well, some people, praise the accessibility of basic health care services.
Okay.
But a lot of people also express frustration with wait times for specialists and limited coverage for things like dental and vision care.
Right. So it seems like the reality of the healthcare system can really vary.
It can.
Depending on your individual needs and the specific province that you're in.
Absolutely. And as for the cost of living, that continues to be a top concern,
Okay.
Groceries, transportation, childcare, it all adds up.
Sure.
Especially with inflation and rising interest rates.
Right. So the financial realities are definitely something to carefully consider.
They are, yeah. It's about being prepared and having a solid financial plan.
Absolutely. Okay. So we've looked at the data. We've heard from actual immigrants, and it's clear that the picture is a lot more nuanced than a single article can convey.
It is.
So what would you say is the most important takeaway for someone considering this move?
I think the most important takeaway is to approach the decision with open eyes.
Okay.
Canada has a lot to offer, for sure.
Right.
But it's not a guaranteed path to success or happiness. It's really about aligning your expectations with reality.
So instead of asking, is Canada all it's cracked up to be?
Yeah.
Maybe the question should be, is Canada right for me?
Exactly.
Given my goals and my circumstances.
That question.
Yeah.
That's the question you need to be asking yourself.
Exactly. Gather all the information.
Yeah.
Weigh the pros and cons.
Absolutely.
And make the choice that resonates with your vision of a good life.
Exactly.
And remember, there's no shame in deciding that Canada might not be the right fit. Right now, there are other paths to explore, other adventures to be had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before you make that decision,
right.
I think there's one more perspective that we need to consider, and that's the Canadian government's.
Right.
What are their goals?
Right.
What are their policies?
Sure.
And how do those align with everything that we've discussed so far?
That's a crucial piece of the puzzle.
It is.
I mean, they're the ones shaping the landscape of immigration, so understanding their perspective is essential.
Yeah.
So let's explore that in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've heard from someone who left Canada.
Right.
We've explored all that data.
Yeah.
We even got to see like a glimpse into the lives of actual immigrants. But now I think it's time to turn our attention to the big player in all this.
Yeah.
The Canadian government.
Right. The ones setting the targets, designing the programs,
right.
and ultimately shaping that whole landscape that newcomers encounter.
Right.
So understanding their perspective is
it's pretty crucial.
It is.
All right, so let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Why does Canada even want so many immigrants?
Right.
Like what's driving this whole open door policy?
Well, I think demographics play a big role.
Yep.
Canada, like a lot of developed nations,
Yeah.
is facing an aging population and a low birth rate.
Okay.
And that means, right, fewer people to support the economy and those social programs in the long run.
Okay, so immigration is seen as a way to kind of fill that gap.
It is.
Keep the workforce strong.
Yeah.
Keep the economy humming.
Exactly. And Canada's been pretty strategic about it, They're targeting specific sectors where they need skilled workers.
So think nurses,
exactly,
engineers, tech professionals.
Yep, those in-demand fields.
Right. So they're looking to attract people who can contribute and help address these specific needs within the country. But haven't we also heard that there could be a disconnect between the skills that immigrants bring and the opportunities that are actually available to them.
You're right. That Canadian experience requirement, it can be a real barrier.
Yeah.
Even with targeted programs, there's a risk of attracting skilled professionals who then end up struggling to find work in their field.
Because they lack that local experience.
Because they lack that local experience.
It's a tough situation. So
it is.
What can the government do to kind of address this disconnect? Are there solutions being explored?
Well, there are a few things. I think bridging programs that help immigrants translate those skills to the Canadian context.
Yeah,
they can be pretty valuable. Mentorship initiatives, connecting newcomers with established professionals, can also open doors. And there's a growing conversation, I think, about reevaluating those stringent hiring requirements to be more inclusive of international experience.
So it sounds like there's at least a recognition that the system needs to adapt to better integrate these newcomers.
I think so.
But beyond the economic factors, Canada also has a reputation for humanitarianism.
Yeah.
I mean, they've welcomed refugees.
They have.
And those seeking asylum for decades.
For decades, yeah.
So what role does that play in all of this?
Well, Canada's commitment to offering refuge, right?
To those fleeing persecution it's admirable, but it also brings up those questions of resources and support.
Okay.
Can the existing infrastructure handle a large influx of refugees?
Yeah.
Many of whom, may have experienced trauma and require
additional help,
additional support.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
It seems like there's this constant balancing act between the government's ambitious immigration goals and the actual capacity of the system to provide adequate support for everyone.
For everybody who comes in.
And we've heard firsthand about those strains on housing, healthcare, and even social safety nets.
Absolutely. And when those systems get stretched, it can create tension.
Right.
Newcomers might feel frustrated with the lack of support.
While existing residents might start to worry about the impact on their communities.
It's a complex issue and no easy answers.
So not at all.
So it sounds like the government's constantly adjusting its approach.
They are.
Tweaking those immigration levels. Right. Revising programs.
Trying to find that sweet spot.
That sweet spot.
Yeah.
All right. So we've explored those motivations, the programs.
The challenges.
And some of the challenges they face.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what does all of this mean for someone listening to this deep dive?
Right.
Someone who's weighing that decision to immigrate to Canada.
Well, I think the key message here is don't make your decision based solely on the government's promotional materials or even on those anecdotal accounts, no matter how positive or negative they might be.
Okay.
Take all this information,
Yeah.
James's experience, the data, the insights from other immigrants and the government's perspective, put it all together and use it to form your own informed opinion.
Do your own research.
Absolutely.
Consider those personal circumstances.
Yeah.
And weigh the potential benefits against those very real challenges.
That's it. Immigration is a deeply personal journey.
It is.
There's no guarantee of success or happiness. It's about finding the right fit for you.
For you.
For your skills, for your goals, for your vision of a good life.
And sometimes the right decision might be to wait.
Yeah.
To explore other options.
Absolutely.
Or to focus on creating that life you want.
Yeah.
Right where you are.
Right where you are.
Yeah. The world is full of possibilities.
It is.
The important thing is to approach those possibilities with a sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
A willingness to learn.
Absolutely.
And a healthy dose of realism.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
And I hope we've provided you with a more nuanced understanding of what it means to immigrate to Canada.
Right. Remember, there's no one right answer.
No.
But armed with knowledge and a clear perspective, you can make the choice that best aligns with your own individual path.
That's great advice. So
I try.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving.